Hi everybody, this is Crystal. So today I'm going to show you how to make this poncho here. Now it's a 2-point poncho, which means it has a point in the front and the point in the back. There's no points on the sides. It's pretty easy to make. It's made mostly with V stitches, so I think you'll probably be able to do it. So let's go ahead and get started on this. Okay, for this project I am using a Lion Brand Mandala Tweed. It's a 100% acrylic medium 4-weight yarn. You don't have to use this yarn. Any medium 4-weight yarn will work. There's 568 yards per cake, and I went through all of 2 cakes. I didn't hardly have any left. So if you're going to want to make yours bigger than mine, you might need a 3rd cake or more yarn if you want to make it bigger. But to follow along with me, I used about 1,100 yards. And if you do decide to use this, I do want to mention that the dye did bleed on my hands. As you watch the video, you'll notice my hands start to turn a little blue. They're not, it's not dirty. It's just the dye was bleeding on my hand a little bit. The color I used is called Lucky Penny, but I did let Lion Brand know so they could figure out what was going on. So... but otherwise, it's really pretty yarn, besides that problem. I just wanted to let you know in case you thought my hands were dirty, but because they're not, it's just the yarn was bleeding on me. And then I'm going to be using a size J, which is a 6mm crochet hook. Alright, you want to start off with a chain of 72. And then you want to go ahead and follow it down without twisting your chain. And then we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch to form one large ring. So go ahead and slip stitch into that first stitch. Like that. Now what we're going to do is chain 1. Then we're going to go right back into that same spot that we just slip stitched into and single crochet like that. And then we are going to work 1 single crochet in every stitch of the chain until we get back around to the beginning. Like this. So 1 single in every stitch until you get back around to your starting point. Alright, once you make it back around to the beginning, at the end of row 1, you should have 72 stitches. Now what you want to do is go ahead and slip stitch into your first single crochet. Not the chain 1, but the first single crochet. Just like that. Now we're going to work the first point of the poncho. So what we're going to do is chain 1. Now that chain 1 does not count as a stitch. We're going to be working in the same stitch here that we just slip stitched into. And what we're going to do is we're going to work a V stitch into that stitch. So we're going to do 1, go into the stitch and put 1 double crochet, chain 1, and then another double crochet. So that's how you work a V stitch. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Now since this is the point, we want to work 2 V stitches. But we want to go ahead and we work this V stitch. We want to do a chain of 2. And now we're going to go back into the same spot and work another V stitch. So we're going to go back into the same stitch and work a double crochet, a chain 1, and another double crochet. So that's how the points get worked. It is a V stitch, a chain 2, and a V stitch. So now what we're going to do is we are going to skip 1 stitch. So skip this one right here, and in the next one we're going to put a V stitch. So go into the next one and work 1 double crochet, chain 1, and then another double crochet. Just like that. And then we're going to repeat that. We're going to skip 1, and in the next one we work a V stitch. So skip this stitch, and in the next stitch we're going to work a V stitch. So we do a double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet into the same stitch. So that's another V-stitch, and we're going to repeat it again. We're going to skip one, skip this one, and V-stitch into the next. Now we're going to repeat this pattern of a V-stitch, skip one, V-stitch, skip one, until we have done a total of 17 V-stitches, and not counting these ones in the point. So we close these off. We don't count these. We have 3 V-stitches there. We want a total of 17. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3. So again, I'm going to skip one and V-stitch into the next, and that will be my 4th V-stitch. Skip one, V-stitch into the next, and that will be my 5th V-stitch. And I'm going to continue doing this until I have a total of 17. Remember, we're not counting the V-stitches of the point. So right now I have 5, and I'm going to continue until I get 17. Alright, I've done my 17 V-stitches there. Remember, we're not counting the V-stitches at the point. So I get 17 V-stitches in a row, and now I'm going to make my second point of my poncho. So I'm going to skip one stitch, and then the next stitch I'm going to work a V-stitch. Remember, the points are always the same. So there's one V-stitch, and then I'm going to work a chain of 2, and then the same stitch I'm going to work another V-stitch. And there we will have our second point made. Just like that. Now I'm just going to repeat what we did over here, over on this side. So I'm going to skip one and V-stitch into the next. Then I'm going to skip one again and V-stitch into the next. So we're just repeating what we did on the other side. And you want to repeat this until you get back to your starting point. You should have 17 V-stitches on this side also. So we've already done 2. There's 1, not counting the point. There's 1, there's 2. We skip one and V-stitch into the next. Skip one and V-stitch into the next. So I'm going to keep repeating this pattern until I get back to my starting point. Alright, I have made it to the end of round 2, and I have 1 stitch left, and I'm going to go ahead and skip that, and I'm going to end with a slip stitch into the first double crochet of the first V-stitch, like that. That'll end round 2, and now I should have a total of 38 V-stitches. Okay, round 3 is the repeat round for the poncho. So we're going to do the same thing from now on. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to slip stitch 3 times until we get to the middle of our first, to this chain 2 space of our first point. So we'll slip stitch once into the chain 1 space, once into the double crochet, and then the third time will be into the chain 2 space, like that, and then we'll chain 1. What we're going to do is we're going to work into this chain 2 space, and we're going to put our point, what we did before. We're going to work a V-stitch, a chain of 2, and then another V-stitch all into that chain space. So that's what every point always gets the same thing, just like that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to jump to our next V-stitch, the chain 1 space right here, and we're going to work a V-stitch right into that space. Chain 1 and double. Then we're going to jump to the next V-stitch right here, and we're going to work a chain 1 space in the middle of that V right here into the chain 1 space. So now it's kind of just a matter of keeping the V-stitches lined up. And it's actually pretty easy. We're just working a V-stitch in the chain 1 space of the V-stitch from the previous round. Just like that. And we're going to do this until we get to our next point. Here's my next V-stitch. I'm going to work a V-stitch right there through it. Here's my next V-stitch. I'm going to work a V-stitch just right there in the space. And as you can see, I'll show you here, my V-stitches are staying lined up, and that's what you want. So go ahead and repeat this, working a V-stitch into the chain one space of every V-stitch until you get to your next point right over here. Alright, I've made it to my next point, the chain two space of my next point. See it right here? And what I'm going to do is right there in that chain two space, I'm going to work the same thing that we work in every point. I'm going to work a V-stitch, a chain two, and then another V-stitch into the same chain two space. And there we go, we got our second point made again. So now I'm going to repeat what we did over here on the other side. So I'm going to jump here to my first V-stitch here, and I'm going to work a V-stitch right into the chain space of it. And then my next V-stitch, I'm going to work a V-stitch into the chain one space of it. So I'm repeating on this side what we did to the other side. And we're going to do this until we get back to the beginning. Okay, I'm coming here to the end. Now, right here where we slip stitched before is a V-stitch, but it kind of doesn't look like it because you slip stitched. But you got to make sure and go right in between those last two double crochets and do a V-stitch. And now what we're going to do is go ahead and end by slip stitching into our first double crochet of our first V-stitch. And now you should have a total of 42 V-stitches all the way around. So now it's just a repeat of round 3. So for round 4, we're just going to repeat what we did on round 3. So we're going to slip stitch 3 times till we get to our first chain 2 space. So right through the chain 1 space, into the next double crochet, and then again into the chain 2 space. And then we start again. We chain 1, and then we work our point. So we put 2 V-stitches, or 1 V-stitch into the chain 2 space, a chain of 2, and then another V-stitch. So that makes our point. And then this, we just repeat what we've been doing. See what it's starting to look like there? So we'll just jump to our first V-stitch, and in the chain 1 space of it, we will work a V-stitch. And then the next one, into the chain 1 space of it, we work a V-stitch. So now we're just going to keep repeating what we did on round 3 until we get our poncho longer. Always remember we're keeping our V-stitches lined up. You will always have 4 more V-stitches at the end of every round than you did the previous round. So round 2 we had 38, round 3 we had 42, and then round 4 we'll have 46. So it just increases by 4 every time. The number of V-stitches that you have will increase by 4 every round. So I'm just going to keep repeating around 3 until I get my poncho quite a bit longer. Now I'm not quite sure how many rounds I'm going to do, but I'll let you know here in just 1 second how many total rows I do. Okay, I went ahead and I've finished 26 total rows, and that is including row 1 of that single crochet. I did 26, but I'm adding fringe to mine, which adds length. Plus, I'm not very tall, so I'm only like 5'3". You can do as many rows as you want to get it the length that you want it. But I did 26. Now I'm going to go around the neck and clean it up. So what we're going to do, I don't have a lot of room up here, so I'm going to show you the best I can. Just kind of start here in the back. We're right up here at the top of the neck. Here's the back of my work. If you look, you can see this is the string from where I first started. Okay, I'm just going to start in any one of these stitches, and I'm just going to work around putting a single crochet in every stitch. So I'm just going to go ahead and start my yarn, and I'm going to chain 1. Now I'm going to work right back into that same stitch, and I'm going to put a single crochet. And now I'm going to work around. I'm going to try to hide those tails as I go. And I'm going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch all the way around the neck of my poncho. And that's just going to clean it up a little bit, make it look a little bit neater. So just like this, all the way around your entire neck until you get all the way back over here to where you started. Okay, now once you make it all the way back to your starting point, you should have 72 stitches because that's what we started with. But if you don't, it's okay, as long as you have somewhere around there. And now we're going to go ahead and end by slip stitching into our first single crochet. Just like that. And then I'm going to tie that off. Clip my yarn and hide that tail, and then we will work on putting some fringe on. So that cleaned up that neck quite nicely. Now fringe, you can leave it off if you want. You don't have to put fringe. You know, fringe isn't for everybody. Some people like it, some people don't. And not to mention, it is quite time consuming to put on. But I do put it on some of my ponchos, and it's relatively easy to do. So for the fringe, you can actually make it as long or short as you want, and as thick. You can make your fringe bundles as thick as you want. But what I did here is I have some yarn that I clipped. They're about a foot long each. Each strand's about a foot long. And I just kind of I put 6 of them in a group. Like that. And then I'm putting the fringe in the chain 1 space of each V-stitch. So I go from underneath like this. And then I pull part of it through from the top to the bottom through the V-stitch. And keep your finger there. Now you see you got that hole there. Get these even at the bottom, your tails. And then you take them and you pull them through there like that. Just like that. That's how I add fringe. You can do it, though, you know, if you learned a different way, that's fine. And remember, you can make it as long or as short as you want. When I'm done, I'll trim these all up even, so they'll get trimmed up a bit. But again, I go through the V-stitch from the bottom, and I pull my 6 strands of yarn through, go from the top to the bottom, and then I put my finger in here, and then I make my tails kind of even on both pieces, and then I grab them and pull them through like that, and tighten them up. So I'm going to do that, add the fringe in every V-stitch all the way around. Remember, if you don't want fringe, that's cool. You could add some other type of edging, or it looks great just the way it is. But I'm going to continue on with my fringe until I get that all put on. Alright, now we're going to make 1 long chain of 101. Like this. 101. So now I'm going to do a single crochet in the 2nd stitch from the hook. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it on the back. So I'm going to flip it over, and you see that one little loop by itself? I'm going to go right into that and then do my single crochet. So here's the front of my chain. I just flip it, and there's this little bump here. Go right into that and single crochet. That'll give you a nice clean edge on your tassel chain here. So here's the front. Just kind of flip it up to where you see that little bump in the back. It's just one loop that you're going through, and you're single crocheting through that one loop. And I'm going to do this all the way down. If you can't get that bump or that one loop back there, that little bump, you can do it normal. It's okay. Sometimes it's hard to get a hang of it. But I'm going to do this all the way down my chain here. One single crochet in every stitch. See, by going in that back little loop there, it just makes a little bit cleaner of an edge. So I'm going to put 1 single crochet in every stitch of the chain until I get to the end. Okay, when you make it to the end, you should have 100 stitches, but it's not that big of a deal if you don't. Just somewhere around there. Now we just kind of want to pull our strings through. I like to give my chain a little stretch. Okay, then we want to hide these tails by weaving them up into the chain. Probably on the back side of it here. I guess it doesn't really matter. Just kind of weave them up into through the chain here. Get them nice and hidden. You want to do that with both of the tails. Okay, now you want to take your poncho. You want to put the front of it facing you. So here's the front of my poncho. And I'm going to weave this in between this first row of V stitches. So I want it to come out, each end's going to come out right here on each side of the point, the very first point. So here's the very first point. You can see it right here. I'm going to make them come out right here. So I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to weave it over and under every other one. I'm going to do that all the way around, over and under every V stitch. Yeah. You want to do this until you get around to the other side. Make sure you give it a nice stretch. Alright, I got my tassel here all the way, or my string all the way through. That's it. That's all there is to it. Hope you enjoyed my tutorial. That yarn did a number on my hands. Look at that. Yep, both of them. Well, it's still really pretty yarn though. I have to admit, the colors are really pretty. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed my tutorial. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. If you look over there on the right hand side of the screen right now, there's not a lot of room here. You'll see a playlist of all my other ponchos in case you want to watch them. See if you want to make any of those. But as always, thanks for watching. Have a good day.